Sarah Doom, representing Lexington Catholic High School. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering, in the 7-day off period, would the prisoners be monitored at all, or would they just be let go, free to do what they want?
For the start of the 7-day off period, the prisoners will be released with the other prisoners, but if there are any infractions within the prison, they will be in a single person cell.
Dipti Adhikari, representing Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School. Madam Chair, my question is, have there been any experiments? Have there been any experiments to prove that this study can help prisoners be better themselves?
Well, when prisoners are put in solitary confinement for a long period of time, it just shows to worsen, so we're just trying to limit the amount of time they are put in there and also limit other conditions.
Patrick Erstl, representing Trinity High School. Madam Chair, what other forms of, I wouldn't go to lengths to say punishment, but that's what solitary confinement might be used as. What other forms of punishment would be put into effect if solitary confinement is not in use?
They will be put into a single person cell instead of like being with the other prisoners, like while they sleep and everything. They'll be by themselves, but they will still be allowed the amount of exercise and the visitors as a normal prisoner.
The time for non-debatable technical questions has ended. We will now move on to pro-con debate. Are there any speeches in opposition? Lexington Catholic, Boutros, St. Xavier, and St. Xavier. Are there any speeches in favor? Brennan, South Oldham Thompson, and McLeod. Oh, shoot. One more speech in opposition. Okay, Trinity. Seeing as the author's speech was a speech in favor, we will now begin with the speech in opposition. You may begin.
Lawrence Boutros, representing Lexington Catholic, Madam Chair. I'm against this bill because I feel like you're putting solitary confinement like on a pedestal as if there were innocent people who were just put in there for something small that they did wrong. Usually if you're in solitary confinement, you've done something sick, mass murder, like something really bad, and you're put in there because you deserved it. And I don't really care that these guys are put in there, they deserved it, and so the prison wards can put them in there for as long as they want, for all I care.
Seeing as that was a speech in opposition, we will now have a speech in favor.
Andrew Brennan, candidate from Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School. Madam Chair, I'd like to reserve my right to yield the remaining amount of my time to the delegate from St. X beside me. A previous delegate talked about how the fact that he doesn't care about the prisoners because, well, they're bad people. I have to disagree with this sentiment that he's reflecting. The people that go into the prison system, and actually the people as a whole, most of the time are there for non-violent crimes. However, what happens in the prison system is that they go into the solitary confinement, they get these negative side effects that they talked about, depression, anxiety, suicide, and rage, and they become more dangerous. In the state of Kentucky, the recidivism rate is over 50%. This means these prisoners are going in, and they're coming out worse than what they went in. This prison system needs to be used to rehabilitate people, and that's exactly what this bill helps to do, and that's why I support it.
Colin White, representing St. Xavier High School as candidate for executive committee. Most of us can't imagine what it'd be like to be in a small cell, and it's just cruel, unusual punishment. If it had been to anybody else that weren't prisoners, it would be banned out, right, completely. They're still human, even though they're prisoners. Just because they're in there doesn't mean...
Time has elapsed. Seeing as that was the speech in favor, we will now move on to a speech in opposition.
Luke Esterly, St. Xavier High School. Madam Chair, will the authors yield to a technical question? Yes. How much is it for a regular inmate compared to one that's in solitary confinement?
Every year it costs $4,837, and for the new system it would cost $4,770.
Seeing as that was the speech in opposition, we will now move on to a speech in favor.
Zoe Thompson, representing South Oldham High School. Madam Chair, I reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to the delegate behind me. So I want to start off by saying that from what I've heard, solitary confinement is outdated. It's an old Quaker method that was used, and they believe that you put these people in a room by themselves and they'll find God and they'll come out better. Well, I mean, we've talked about that. Obviously, that isn't true. The second point I want to make is that this is arguably unconstitutional. I mean, this is cruel and unusual punishment, putting these people in these rooms, and as we've said, we're making them worse than they were before. So not only are we torturing these people, but we're like hurting society because we're sending these people back out and they're worse than they were before and they can't do anything to help us. So that's why I support this bill.
Teddy Martin representing South Oldham High School, Madam Chair. I'll keep this brief. I'd like to paraphrase one of my favorite philosophers, Nietzsche. He says, "The only criminal act in this country is that we treat criminals like scoundrels. This is not Shawshank Redemption. Let's try and treat our prisoners human."
Seeing as that was a speech in favor, we will now have a speech in opposition.
Patrick Gipperline, representing St. Xavier High School. Madam Chair, will the authors yield to a technical question?
Yes.
I reserve the right to speak afterwards. You say that the less than half of the suicides in prisons are people who were in solitary confinement. What about the other half? What caused them to do these things, or what's the main reason for them?
People commit suicide for different reasons, but we're talking about the people that only have pre-existing mental health conditions. So the people that are put in solitary confinement after these conditions can only make them worse, and we're practically setting them up for failure.
I urge you not to vote for this bill because, as many people have already said, these people are in fact criminals. They have killed people, they may have even murdered people, and under the jurisdiction of the warden, once these people are in prison, if they commit another crime, then the warden gets to sentence them, and that is the reason they are sent to the hole or put in solitary confinement. So I urge you not to vote for this.
Seeing as that was a speech in opposition, we will now have our final speech in favor.
Caleb McIntosh, True County High School, Madam Chair. Would the authors yield to a technical question? And I would also like to yield the remainder of my time to the delegate to my side. What is the current amount of days that a prisoner in solitary confinement can serve?
For what we can find, there is no limit, but on average, they're in there for probably about 4 years.
Daniel Hogan, Trinity High School, Madam Chair. I urge you guys to pass this bill. As the delegates before me said, this being in solitary confinement when you have a pre-existing condition only makes people worse. We're trying to give people a chance to go to prison and come out a better person, to get fixed so they can help society and contribute. So I urge you to prevent them from just becoming worse for our society and ended up hurting people. Thank you.
Seeing as that was a speech in favor, we will now have our final speech in opposition.
Eric Elder, representing Trinity High School, Madam Chair. This is obviously a very serious and awful punishment, but it's probably, when prisoners are put in solitary confinement, it's probably because they've done something equally serious and equally awful, and maybe overall solitary confinement use should be reduced, but sometimes it may be the only option. Thank you.
Chair calls previous question. The author will have 1 minute, 20 seconds for their summation speech. You may begin.
Some of the cons mentioned by previous delegates included that they deserve it, and that even though they shouldn't be viewed as innocent people, they are criminals. And in the judicial system, they deserve what they get. But whenever you are in solitary confinement, it can be for a minor offense just as easy as it can be for a major offense, because it's punishment within the jail system. And what you need to understand is that while the warden does decide whether or not you're put in solitary confinement, whenever you're put in there and you have pre-existing mental health conditions, those are only going to be worsened by this environment. And we need to prevent that, because as he said, this is going to be for rehabilitation. We're trying to make these people better, so when they come back into society, they will be the people that we want in the society.
Solitary confinement causes many internal lifelong illnesses that nobody deserves. Even though these are criminals, this is considered cruel and unusual punishment, and it's against the law. When these men and women are put in prison, and after being released from solitary confinement, it is not long before they go right back to prison because the conditions they because the conditions solitude causes. Limiting solitary confinement will prevent and reduce all these illnesses.
It is now time to vote on this bill. Will the doorkeeper seal the chambers? All those in favor, raise your bill books and say in a normal tone of voice, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. It is the decision of the chair that this bill has been passed, and it has.